The world was on edge. Israeli warplanes had struck. Iran had responded. The skies above the Middle East churned with drones, missiles, and dread. Superpowers stared each other down, fingers hovering above red buttons. But in a quiet corner of West Africa, something entirely unexpected was happening. In a small room dimly lit by flickering monitors, a young president was watching. Not as a spectator, but as someone preparing to do the unthinkable. Not react with missiles, not issue threats, but to speak. And when he finally did, his words hit harder than any airstrike. Neither Israel nor Iran saw it coming, not even the African Union. And yet, his silence had been louder than their wars. What if the next global war doesn't begin in Washington or Tehran? What if it begins with silence, followed by one voice bold enough to break it? What if, while empires exchange fire, the truth comes from the poorest nation, the most overlooked capital, and a man no one expected? Because that's what happened. In the capital of Burkina Faso, President Ibrahim Traoré said what no one else dared, and the world wasn't ready. In Ouagadougou, the mood had shifted. The sun hung low in a blood-orange sky, casting shadows over the tin roofs and packed markets. Vendors shouted. Children darted through streets. But something in the air felt wrong. Not fear of a coup, not debt or famine. Something heavier. Something distant, yet dangerously near. Across the world, Israel had launched its most deadly airstrikes on Iran in decades. Precision attacks on nuclear sites. The Natanz facility obliterated. Top generals killed in seconds. General Mohammad Bagheri, General Hussein Salami, and the feared Emir Ali Hajizadeh. Iran didn't wait. Over 100 drones roared toward Israeli skies. Some reached deep into Israeli territory. Most were intercepted. But the message was clear. This was not brinkmanship. This was war. The world held its breath. Oil prices soared. The United Nations called emergency sessions. Western leaders issued carefully worded statements. China warned of catastrophic outcomes. But in the heart of West Africa, beneath creaking ceiling fans, Ibrahim Traoré sat in silence. No advisors, no generals, just him, a glass of water, and a glowing TV screen. He didn't flinch at the blasts. He didn't blink at the headlines. Because he knew, when giants wage war, it's the small who bleed. He had seen it before. When the Middle East burned, Burkina Faso's economy caught fire. Bread prices doubled. Weapons flooded the region. Young men disappeared into wars they didn't start. And Africa once again was expected to pick a side that never truly served her. As the screen flashed faces of world leaders, Netanyahu, Khamenei, Xi, Biden, he didn't see saviors or villains. He saw a theater. And Africa, still in the cheap seats. Still being told when to clap, when to cry. But not this time. He turned off the screen, poured the water, didn't drink it. Instead, he asked a question no analyst dared to voice. What if the greatest threat isn't war itself, but the silence we mistake for peace? The next morning, he gave the order, prepare a live broadcast. No scripts, no filters. His advisors froze. This was dangerous. Burkina Faso couldn't afford international backlash. A wrong word could bring sanctions or worse. But Traoré didn't care about protocol. He had seen what silence cost in the eyes of starving children, in gold mines guarded by men with foreign rifles, in towns emptied by war-induced famine. As technicians scrambled, the rumor spread, Traoré was going to speak. No one expected it. Not diplomats, not even his staff. But they should have. This was Traoré, young, principled, unbending, and now unafraid. At 9 a.m. sharp, the camera light turned red. The live feed reached the world. No flags, no polished podium, just Traoré in a plain wooden chair, under a flickering bulb. He looked into the lens, not with fury, but with calm resolve. I know my words may anger many, he began, but silence is no longer an option. He paused, and then, today, the skies are on fire. Israel has struck. Iran has answered. And millions wait beneath those skies, wondering what falls next. He didn't speak in political jargon. He spoke in truth. This is not just Israel and Iran. This is a sickness of pride, of power, of forgetting what humanity means. He leaned forward, and the price isn't paid in Tel Aviv or Tehran alone. It is paid in Ouagadougou, in Gaza, in Nairobi's slums, in forgotten villages no war reporter will ever visit. The world watched. Stunned, here was a leader not posturing, but pleading, not warning, but waking the world. Because Ibrahim Traoré knew, if Africa didn't speak now, it might never get the chance again. The world stood on edge. Israel had launched airstrikes. Iran had responded. The skies over the Middle East shimmered with drones, fire, and fear. Superpowers held their breath, calculating each next move like pieces on a nuclear chessboard. But in a small room in West Africa, far from the thunder of missiles, something more powerful than warfare was unfolding, a decision that would shake the very foundations of global diplomacy. President Ibrahim Traoré, the young and unshaken leader of Burkina Faso, sat alone in his office. No entourage, no generals, just a hum of old monitors and a muted television screen replaying scenes of destruction from Tehran to Tel Aviv. The world's attention was locked on the Middle East, but what they missed was that something was stirring in Ouagadougou, something they never saw coming. It wasn't a coup, it wasn't a drone. It was a whisper, a voice forming in silence, preparing to speak a truth so raw it would tear through the polished facades of power politics. And when it finally spoke, it wasn't Washington or Tehran that trembled. It was the world. Burkina Faso had always been an afterthought in global affairs, landlocked, under-resourced, and often overlooked. But this time it would not be silent, not when history demanded courage. It began the morning after the airstrikes. Iran's top generals were dead, their most critical nuclear sites reduced to ashes. In retaliation, waves of drones filled the skies over Israel. Some were shot down, others weren't. Oil markets panicked. Diplomats scrambled. The U.S. president offered a vague statement. China warned of unforeseen consequences. And yet in Burkina Faso, President Traoré sat in a dim-lit room, contemplating not oil or alliances, but the cost of silence. He had seen this before, how wars far from Africa eventually came home. Not in headlines, but in hunger, in the price of grain, in the rise of extremism, in the flood of arms that washed over Sahel and turned boys into soldiers. This time, he would not be a bystander. As global media fixated on missiles, Traoré asked a different question. Well, the most dangerous weapon in the world wasn't a bomb, but silence? Outside, Ouagadougou moved with routine chaos. Markets bustled, radios crackled, but inside the palace, tension brewed. When Traoré summoned his communications team, his instruction was clear. Prepare a live address. No filters. No diplomatic scripts. Just the truth. His advisors were stunned. To speak out now against the world's most powerful players was unheard of, dangerous, even reckless. But Traoré had made up his mind. By 9 a.m., the broadcast went live. There was no flag behind him, no polished speech, just a man in a plain wooden chair, and the truth he could no longer contain. I know what I'm about to say won't please everyone, he began, voice calm, almost unnerving. But I am not here to please. I am here because silence is no longer an option. He looked directly into the camera. This isn't just about Israel or Iran. This is a sickness, a global sickness of pride, revenge, and forgotten humanity. The price? It's not just paid in Tel Aviv or Tehran. It's paid in Burkina Faso, in Mali, in the camps of Sudan, in the hunger of a child in Niger. The words thundered across screens not because they attacked, but because they exposed. To the people of Israel, I understand your fear. To the people of Iran, I understand your grief. But to the leaders fueling this fire, I ask, when did humanity become your enemy? The line cut through world capitals like lightning. Even news anchors stopped mid-sentence. Embassies scrambled to transcribe every word. No one had expected the voice of Africa to roar this loud or this true. They will tell you this is about nuclear deterrence, about defense. But is it really defense or dominance? He continued, Burkina Faso will not choose sides in this war, but we will not be silent. We have no missiles, but we have memories, and those memories have taught us that silence always costs more than courage. Across Africa, people stopped to listen. Students leaned over phones. Vendors paused radios. From Nairobi to Accra, the continent took a collective breath. Traoré wasn't just delivering a speech. He was forcing the world to look in the mirror. And it didn't stop there. Within hours, global reaction exploded. Western governments called his remarks irresponsible, provocative. Iran and Israel both accused him of favoring the other. But on social media, his message ignited like wildfire. Translated into 30 languages in under 24 hours, it trended from Jakarta to Johannesburg under hashtags like #TraorTruth and #AfricaSpeaks. A vigil was held in Tehran, not for generals, but for civilians. In Tel Aviv, an Israeli anchor choked back tears asking, "When did we stop caring about someone else's child?" In Accra and Dakar, murals of Traoré appeared overnight, not as a politician, but as a symbol, a voice, a mirror held up to the world. Africa was no longer a background character in global conflict. It had stepped into the light. And then the African Union did something historic. It called an emergency session, not to condemn Traoré, but to listen. For the first time, a leader from a small nation wasn't being tolerated at the table. He was guiding it. And behind the scenes, the backlash brewed. Intelligence agencies flagged him. Threats emerged online. Rumors swirled of isolation, sanctions, even sabotage. His security was doubled. His team urged him to retract, to soften. He refused. "They want me to speak like a politician," he said. "But I spoke as a human being, and humanity needs no clarification." That night, Ouagadougou lit up with candlelight. Not protests, pride. Young people marching peacefully, holding signs that read, "We are not small. We are not afraid. We are not silent." The missiles hadn't stopped, but neither had the message. For the first time, the world was listening, not to power, but to perspective. Soon after, the African Union proposed an unprecedented peace mission, led not by global giants, but by Burkina Faso, Kenya, and Ghana. Traoré stood at the helm, not with demands, but with clarity. At a summit in Addis Ababa, his closing words drew global applause. The world cannot survive if the poorest must always pay the price for the richest. Even Western diplomats nodded, quietly, respectfully, acknowledging what could no longer be denied. A continent long overlooked had found its voice, and this time, the world couldn't unhear it.